Were you told you were shy? Do you identify as shy? Do you hate that word now? Do you just wish you could get over it and get on with your life? Welcome to Shining Beyond Shy, empowering you to create a greater life than you ever thought was possible. With your Shining Beyond Shy host, Fiona Cutts. Hi everybody, Fiona Cutts here, your host for Shining Beyond Shy. And this week I'm calling the episode Kindness, True Kindness, actually I'm calling it. And so here I am. So if you haven't listened to my last two episodes, you may not know that I'm in the middle of some extreme dental treatment and still quite near the beginning. So if you're watching this, I'm edentulous. That's one of the great things is I've learned a new word. So edentulous is without teeth. So I'm going through this very, very long process. And sometime in the future, I will have bright new shiny implants. And yeah, at the moment, here I am. And a couple of weeks ago, I think, or I've lost track of time, I chose to just continue with my podcast. So here's the next one, Beyond Kindness. And it's about this choice I made to have implants and how that showed up for me, particularly on the day of the treatment. So basically, I spent the longest time thinking that I wouldn't have this type of treatment. I had decided that I would go the natural route and was kind of ignoring that the natural route wasn't working, as you do, or as I do. And so when I started to really become present with my body, really become present with my teeth, mouth, and gums, it became very, very clear to me that kind of against all the odds as somebody who comes from a natural healing background, I actually realized that this was the best thing for my body. And those of you who are watching the video will see my sweet body moving. And yeah, that's just my body saying, yeah, against all the odds, this is actually what was kind for me. And so I didn't speak to many dentists. So having spent, a couple of years avoiding and not having this done, I didn't speak to many dentists. It's like I followed the energy to come to a dentist down in the south of Croatia. And then at a certain point, I had so many questions and I was getting good answers, but I was like, I think it would be a good idea to speak to someone else. And I didn't really think that I would go to the other dentist. I mean, I may have done if they turned out to be super fantastic. And but just to get a sense of costs, I guess, and just to get a sense of what the other dentists were saying. And so this other dentist, he basically suggested something that was going to take longer. And this is already taking a long time. I mean, I had the first surgery day in June, and it's supposed, I say supposed because it changes all the time. It looks like I will have the final things done. It won't be a surgery last time, but I'll have the final things done with my implants in December. So it's already 6 months. And basically, the dentist in Zagreb said to me, actually, we need to go pretty slowly. There's this problem, this problem, this problem. And, we think it will be better for your body if we go slowly. And this wasn't the only reason that I chose not to go with this dentist, but it really wasn't fun for me to think it was going to take like 9 months or, he basically said a year, even though it didn't really add up to a year, but I think he kind of just rounded it up. But it was going to be 9 months. And that just didn't feel fun for me. And there was they put in something at the beginning that was basically going to add on 3 months. And it's like, I was ready to just go, finally. So, I hadn't been intending to use this other dentist anyway. And the idea of doing it more slowly was just horrible for me. And so I went into the surgery and was actually very, very joyful on the morning. And it was so intense. Well, you can imagine having your teeth ripped out of your mouth and then a whole load of other stuff done, cleaning. And yeah, it was just very, very full on, and drilling, and they put some of the implants in. It was very, very full on. And at the end of the morning, I was actually in tears. It was like, it was so, well, you imagine the psychological trauma of having all your teeth taken out at once. I was actually in tears, and the dentist didn't quite know what to do with it. It's like the lady in command kind of, I think she thought I was a bit weak to be crying, and the two guys just didn't know how to handle it and obviously wished it wasn't happening. And so they kind of ignored the state I was in and said, okay, you have 15 minutes and then we'll do the lower jaw. And my body just screamed, absolutely screamed, no, no, no. And I just said, look, I'm sorry, I can't do it in 15 minutes. I just can't. And they looked really surprised. And it was as though no patient before had had the guts, or I'm going to say this, the awareness of their body to say something like that. And they all left the room, and they had this sort of hurried little meeting. And the nice guy, I mean, they were all nice, but the kind of sexy guy came in, and he was like, look, you're the most important thing here. And if you require longer than 15 minutes, you're welcome to have longer than 15 minutes. If you don't get that you can have the lower jaw surgery done today, then you don't have to have it done today. You're in charge here. And I was like, wow, thank you so much. And I kind of knew that I would be fine for the lower jaw. And they did actually say we would recommend it. It's like, we've gone so far, you may as well, just continue now. And so I went to their little waiting room and basically used some tools of access consciousness. And an hour later, I was fine. And I was actually cracking jokes with them. They gave me all the anesthetic again. And I was like, oh, I've changed my mind. And it's like these two sweet guys and I were laughing about that. But then what occurred in the afternoon was that in some ways I felt that I was handling the surgery better. And like in the morning, I was like very, very awake and present. And I was like, how does it get better than this? Ease, joy, and glory all the way, please. And I was really kind of awake and alive. And in the afternoon, I was a bit more out of it. And at the time, I thought, oh, I'm just more relaxed. That's good. But at the end of the surgery, they basically wanted to take an X-ray. I stood up and spurted blood everywhere. Has to get better than this. This should come with a warning, a gory warning, shouldn't it, this episode? Anyway, we went to the X-ray and basically I passed out. I mean, obviously there are these sexy guys there, so any excuse. But I passed out, and they sat me down, they brought me around. I mean, they were very, very, very professional. But then they tried to get me to go to the X-ray again. And as soon as I was in the vicinity of the X-ray, I began to feel, woo, 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 woo. I can't do it, I can't do it. And I just said, look, I'm really sorry, I can't do it. And what I realized was that they were so, I'm going to just put it like this. They were so unused to reading how people's bodies were responding that they thought that they could just push through. They thought that even so we'd lost this hour because I insisted on having an hour rather than quarter an hour between sessions. They thought that they could keep me longer and do everything that they planned to do during the day. And my body was just like, no way, no way, I'm not having more now. And so again, they had this sort of hurried consultation, and they're like, well, okay, what this means is that you won't have dentures. And at the time, I was like, oh no, how can I get around without any teeth? Oh, no, I don't want that. And so we agreed that I'd come in again soon to have the dentures fitted. And so, and then another way in which they weren't willing to really be present with what my body desired. They were so keen for me to eat and drink. And I can tell you, after, I don't know, 6 hours of oral surgery, I really did not feel like eating. And actually, I didn't really feel like drinking either. I mean, I can understand that it may be more important to drink, but I didn't feel like doing either of them. And I wasn't worried about it because I trust my body. And it's like, my body was like, no, thank you. We really don't want to eat. And no, thank you. We'll have a tiny bit of water, but we really don't want to drink. And actually, if we're having water, can we have some painkiller in the water, please? That was my body's point of view. And it's funny, I mean, I don't normally take painkillers for anything, but in this case, I was like, you know what, this is pretty difficult. If the painkillers are going to make it easier, I'll have them. So that for the first, I can't remember now, 3 or 4 days, I was taking these easy to swallow. Well, actually, it was the powder, so it was very easy. But I wasn't worried about the eating and drinking, but they were, and they were continually asking me if I was eating and drinking, and trying to make me give me things that I could. So, well, as soon as I went home, that's right. And then they kept, because of the sort of passing out, they kept me there for longer. And then, as soon as I went home, I just realized I am so grateful that I don't have a load of plastic dentures to shove in my mouth, because what they suggest is that you wear the dentures overnight to, I can't remember exactly, but so that they fit better. And honestly, the idea of shoving stuff into my poor little mouth at that point, it was like, no. And I'm like, well, how clever was my body that it created not having the dentures? And actually, 10 days later, I still couldn't have dentures because I had a sore on my mouth, and they were like, no, you can't. And again, I get my body created it deliberately. And really what I'm coming to is that having been in this place of this needs to happen quickly so that, you know, I look pretty again quickly, so that I have nice teeth quickly, I very quickly came to this space, oh, what's important is my body. What's important is looking after me and having my gums and mouth heal as best they can. How will they heal as best they can? Not by having a load of plastic shoved in there. And I just realized I don't really care what people think. I mean, I guess that's not entirely true. It's like I'm down in a place where I don't really know people. It's not like I'm going dancing every week with no teeth. I may not choose to do that. But hey, here I am showing up on this podcast. So it's like there are certain things I'm willing to do, certain things I'm not. And in terms of my day-to-day life, I don't really have a point of view whether what people think. It's like the most important thing for me is the healing of my mouth, the healing of my gums, and actually doing what's kind for my body rather than what's gonna look pretty. So, and it's funny, I said this to the dentist, and he was like, oh, okay. I think he was a bit surprised because I imagine most people prefer to have the dentures, have the teeth, and it was always clear that I wouldn't have the denture, the what do you call them, the implants quickly for various reasons. But it's just so interesting to realize that I'd gone from that place of I need to have this done quickly to actually what's important is me and my body and my mouth and my gums, and I don't really care what anybody thinks, and I'm just going to prioritize me and my body. And that occurred with food as well. It's like the next day I really didn't feel like eating anything, and they were texting me quite a lot. Are you eating? Are you this? Are you that? And they had said to me, okay, one of the young ladies who works there is like, well, one of the great thing is that you get to eat ice cream. And I was like, oh, really? And honestly, that first day, the only thing that I enjoyed eating was cold ice cream. It was like heaven going down my inflamed mouth. It was, I just couldn't quite believe it, actually. It was the only thing I enjoyed eating. And then suddenly, I think it was on day 3, I woke up and I was hungry. And I was like, oh, okay. It was like my body knows what it requires. And what I'm noticing now is there are some days when I'm really hungry, some days when I'm not. There are days when I'm really bored with what I'm able to eat, and days where I'm fine. I guess like normal life. So what can I say here? So I'm about to leave with a couple of questions. So what kindness are you willing to be for your sweet body? What more communion are you willing to have with your sweet body? Because I just realized that, I mean, in the past, I wouldn't have known whether I wanted to eat or not. I wouldn't have trusted. It's like if I didn't want to eat and they were telling me to eat, I wouldn't have trusted that. I wouldn't have trusted myself to say, hey, I am not going back into surgery in a quarter of an hour. Thank you very much. I'd never have trusted myself to say that. So are you willing to listen to your body? Are you willing to trust your body? Are you willing to speak up and say what's true for you and your sweet body? Okay, I think that's all for today. And so if this episode was useful to you and you get that there are other people you know who could benefit from it, please share it, please like it, please comment. What if every shy person on the planet could have access to these tools? And I realized that these, at the moment, I'm talking about what's up for me. And I mean, like I said last time, if you imagine that I used to be so shy, it was hard for me to say my name in a room full of people. The fact that I'm willing to show up looking like this and sounding like this, well, that is an indication that these tools around shyness work. And I will be doing more monthly Zooms around shyness, and I will let you know when they're going to start up again. So thank you for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I'm so grateful for you. It would be great if you could subscribe, great if you could even review wherever you're listening. And if you'd like some quick, simple tips to overcome shyness wherever you are, please go to my website, FionaCutts.com, where you can download my free product, 5 Steps to Overcoming Shyness Wherever You Are. Thank you again, and see you next time.